Amen.
Amen.
L'chaim, everybody. Good Tavach, Shavua Tov. Wonderful week ahead, especially when you live with the Parsha, especially after living this past Shabbos, hearing from my nephew, who was 90 days in Gaza, and what saved his life was a l'chaim. That when he was 15 years old, he learned over here on Simchas Torah how the Chabad custom, everybody makes a l'chaim, everybody makes their own kiddush, and because he is of the first to go into Gaza, the first brigade of Miluim, as reservists of the highest rank, and only because his head was spinning, he wasn't there immediately. Thank God.
He's there now?
He's here now. He was here this Shabbos with us. He was in shul for Shabbos. Yeah. So, l'chaim. We should say l'chaim. It was an amazing story, an amazing journey. So, together with that, in today's, this week's Parsha, we have some shocking prophecies of terrible tragedies that would befall the Jewish people as punishment for their sins. Let's read some of them. Not the right one? It's the only one.
That's the one.
Is that because they didn't have the concept of tshuva then, Rabbi?
You like to when I bet you're Sharon, when you read a novel, you read the end of it first, right? To know what happens at the end, right? I say you like to read the end. I know, I got it. Huh? But guess what? I guess what, Sharon? We're not going to the end. We're going to start at the beginning.
Oh, I didn't mean your class. I meant from what we learned on Saturday.
I said what your comment, what you just asked, which was very valid, but it's like going to the end of the book, right?
Yeah.
That was my point. All right, let's get into the Torah portion. We have the Teichacha, and God will scatter you among all the nations from one end of the earth to the other. And among those nations, you will not be calm, nor will your foot find rest. There, God will give you a trembling heart, dashed hopes, and a depressed soul. And your life will hang in suspense before you. And you will be in fear night and day, and you will not believe in your life. In the morning you will say, if only it were evening, and in the evening you will say, if it only were morning, because of the fear in your heart that you will experience, and because of the sights that you will behold. Some pretty gruesome stuff that's there. That's, this is some of the milder stuff, right? And what makes this actually very difficult to accept is that these prophecies, in fact, did happen. They did come to fruition. They're not just mere threats of foretelling the future of what might happen, but in fact, they did happen. The upheavals of exile, of Babylon, and of Rome. As we have from the Abarbanel, he says in text number 2, it is important to know that the curses mentioned in the Torah portion are not meant as exaggerated threats to intimidate Jews into obedience, rather that they were in spirit of a sacred divine prophecy foretelling the future. In other words, the Jews did sin and they were punished. as we say in the Amidah and the holiday festivals, we say Mipnei Chateinu Galinu Me'arsenu, because of our sins, we've been exiled from our land. And the Jewish exile and the tragedies that come with it are a divine response to our sins. Now, exile, right? Which, by the way, even though we have the land of Israel today, we're still in exile, right? Because we don't have the divine, we don't have the Shekhinah, the divine presence of God that is present in the land in Israel in a manner that is palpable and real, and what makes it revealed holiness rather than holiness. It's not revealed, right? So the Holy Land is always the Holy Land. That's not a question. Question of the revealed holiness. And in some ways, there is no doubt great miracles that are happening there today, and have happened for the last, over 70 years. No doubt about it. That on some level, there's very clear the presence of God, as actually was from, Tanya. How do you like that? Ties in with, well, I don't want to get off too much on a tangent. But exile, getting back to exile, it's a two-way street. We're exiled from our Father's table, from his home, right? And our Father in heaven is also in exile. He himself is in exile. As the previous Rebbe says in a Maimer, time of exile is a time of concealment. It is entirely different from the era of the temple, which was filled with revelation and light. God's infinite light was bright and revealed. The exile is different. God conceals his face, as the passage states, and I will hide my face on that day. So we said earlier that exile is because of our sins, but to be more accurate, because of our sins, God hides himself, right? And when God hides himself, that's when bad things can occur and tragedy can occur, right? So it's a different, right? We have such power that we can cause God to hide himself. That just means that, suffering can occur as a result. Now, very important that we must note that God isn't doing that. And sometimes when you read a verse in the Torah, you might think out of anger. He's frustrated with us and eventually gets angry with us. And therefore, vengeance is being taken upon us. That's couldn't be further than the truth, than any truth. Torah speaks on a simple level. On a simple level, a 5-year-old, right? How does a 5-year-old experience something that's punishing? Well, how does it experience it? Emotionally, experiencing it as painful and only as punishing, right? Only as suffering. That's how a child experiences it. Doesn't understand anything more. So if, as a child, if we act childish, then, the metaphor the Alter Rebbe gives in Tanya is that when a real parent, honest, real parent, I gave a course many years ago on parenting and from JLI. So we had a picture of an assembly of children that come from two healthy parents and a place of 1,000 seats. And there were 4 people. Meaning we don't come from the healthiest. And we probably weren't the healthiest either in turn as parents. The point being The point being, a real parent will never do anything out of frustration or anger to their child. And I'm sure any of us that were a parent, we probably did that once or twice, probably not more than that, but which means it's unhealthy, right? But God's not like that. He is a true parent. And the only reason he does it is to cleanse us from the sin, right? In order to have forgiveness, to be cleansed, so there needs to be a process. Even death itself is not a vengeance of God. It is an atonement for the individual, and it's a cleansing that they go through. That death is it is the purpose of death. That ultimately, through that cleansing, you can come to Gan Eden, where the pleasure that the soul has in Gan Eden is worth all the pain and suffering that a person has to go through to get there. It's so delightful. Okay. As Rashi says, oops. Where's text 4? There we go. Okay. As the day grows dark at night and then shines again, so did God make it bright for you before and will make it bright for you again. The curses and the suffering preserve you and enable you to stand before him by cleansing you of your sins. Right. So if, going on a trip today with some grandchildren and some of my sister's grandchildren, and giving them food. When you go on a trip, the shirt gets messy, gets full of and imagine you wore that dirty shirt and you were put into the washing machine with all the chemicals and all of the spinning and all the things that go on there. It wouldn't be a pretty ride, but in the end you come out nice and clean, right? Come out nice and clean. So that is the idea then of any suffering that we go through in a time of exile, right? In the times that we are now, where God's presence is not palpable, is not real as it is in the times of the Holy Temple, right? So again, just to sum up that point, why is God doing it? For our benefit, that we're in exile, that it's a cleansing, that we can come to a better place, that we come to a better eventuality, right? Ultimately from this exile, come to the final redemption. On a personal level, even death is an atonement. So exile, likewise. Okay. So in light of this, the following Talmudic passage is pretty curious. Rabbi Channa bar Sanavacha said, in the name of the sages of the school of Rav, God regrets creating 4 things: the exile, the Chaldeans, and the Ishmaelites, and the evil inclination. God regrets creating the exile? Didn't we just say that, yes, it's painful? And just like a mother, when her child gets all dirty playing in the mud, bathes the child, and especially as a girl with long hair and the hair is all tangled and she's crying, it's painful, but it's a necessary thing the mother needs to do to cleanse the child, right? So we can understand that it's painful for God, the exile, because he's putting us through pain that we get, necessary as it is. But what does it mean he regrets? Right? What does that mean? Can't be that God is regretting this in the simple terms, right? Why not? I just made a statement. Why not?
It's not that simple.
Well, no, I'm asking a question. Why is God not regret? Why can we say piece of Talmud is saying God regrets, right? So just like when we learn a verse in the Torah and it looks like God is angry, so for the 5-year-old, that's all they can understand is the anger of a parent, right? It seems to be anger when the parent is really motivated by a devotion to the child, but has to do this for the child to learn a lesson, right? Huh? No, so, but what does it mean? So what I'm saying is therefore anger.
That said he had to, you misbehaved, and that he had to
Meaning,
go deeper. Somebody else.
Like if you tell
Regret is a very, very strong emotion, very, very
so
strong.
what does it mean to you?
It's almost like it's a hopelessness, it's a regret,
So we can't say that about God, right?
So why is this, Rabbi, I think this is what he's saying.
That's what's her. This is Torah, so it's the truth. Question is, how do we understand the truth?
How do you go, Rabbi?
Huh? It's the truth. It's Torah. It's in the Talmud, right? So it means we need to understand it, right? Doesn't mean we'll question it. You can question the truth to understand it, but we're not questioning it. Oh, he's wrong? No, he's not wrong. Actually, the term is also used in Chumash itself. We have by the flood. God says, I regret that I'm at the end of Parshas Bereshis, before that I regret that I made man. So the same terminology is used. So here, Reb Chana, the son of Acha, is picking up on that terminology, right? So it's a terminology in Chumash. But we need to understand what does it mean, because we can't use it in the same manner that we would use about ourselves. Regret means I'm sorry that I did that to you, and meaning I would never do it again. I would never do it again, because that's what regret means. That's not what it means here. Because guess what? God would do it again. In other words, he would do it again, have exile, have an evil inclination, and these 4 things that we're talking about. So
you could do something. You could do something.
well, go ahead.
You could do something because it's necessary, not because.
Good. In other words, it's necessary, but that doesn't mean it's not regrettable. It's a necessary thing that has to be done. At the same time, it's regrettable. Not a contradiction. Exactly. Well said. Well said. In other words, God would do it again. He would do it again. Where we use the word regret, it could very well mean I regret doing it. I won't do it again. Here it doesn't mean God won't do it again. Yet it is regrettable nonetheless. We're going to pick up on this later on a little more in the exact terminology, right?
What does tolerance mean?
Huh?
What does tolerance mean?
Oh, the 4 things over here, the Chaldeans, they were part of the conquering of the first holy temple. They kind of allowed the bridge to bridge coming from the Babylonians to the destruction of the first holy temple. Okay. So let's see how the Rebbe says in this week's Torah portion, this week's Sicha. So It goes without saying that God does not regret in a literal sense, God forbid. He does not change his mind and rue something he did, God forbid. Rather, divine regret highlights the negativity in something he created. It's a fact of life. It is what it is, regrettable as it is, but it is. Okay?
Yes, conversely, you could say that something is, you regret to do something, but at the same time, it's necessary to do it.
Well, then you don't regret doing it. You regret that it has to be done, right? I regret that I have to give you a punishment because you wreaked havoc in the classroom and, you threw all the books off the bookshelf and that regrettably, this is what has to be done. For example, right? That makes sense. So means in other words, means like this. There are things that God creates in his universe that have no intrinsic value, right? No intrinsic value. Inherently, they're negative, but they serve a good cause. But they're necessary. Exactly. They're necessary because they serve a good cause. That's called exile. Galus. Seeping in a little? You getting it a little? Huh? Right? If not for the cause, God wouldn't have created it, that it would, the cause is important. God created these regrettable things. All right? There are very few things in this world that are black and white, right? Completely good is only a mitzvah, like we're doing now, learning Torah, giving tzedakah, davening, right? Shabbos, coming to Chabad Zichron, Kadeshim on Shabbos. Oh, I'm not certain there's such beautiful smiles by everybody here. Even nicer smiles on Shabbos. Right? Those things are inherently, right? Then there are things that they serve a good cause. They're a mixture, good and bad, right? Most of the things are that way. Most things are like that. Let's give an example. Maybe it's not the best one. Chemotherapy, right? It is terrible what it does to a person, how it wreaks havoc. None of us should have it. No one should have to have it, right? However, what it produces, for God forbid, for someone who's in need of it, and let's say it's the only alternative, we're using this as a metaphor. Obviously, it doesn't mean it's the only alternative, and maybe alternative medicine might be the alternative, but that's not the point over here. The point in the metaphor, right? What it does to a person is terrible, but it might be a necessary evil that a person has to go through in order to survive. Exactly, right? In order to survive. Now, think of it. If we find tomorrow a better pill, guess what? That better pill that's not going to wreak havoc to your system, what will be with chemotherapy? Gone with, because there's no inherent value to it. Now, I don't want to go off topic over here for big pharma. For them, there's inherent value because it's called a dollar sign. But that's not inherent value, obviously, right? But the point being is it's gone tomorrow because there's a better method that doesn't ruin your life in the interim, right? God willing, it
Especially
should be
you don't-
found.
Especially you
I-
don't lose your hair.
Well, especially your beautiful hair, yes. Other people, they don't have such beautiful hair to start with, so they're not losing too much. Right. So the same is true with the list of creation that God deems regrettable. Right. Some of them are intrinsically bad, but others have a mixture of good and bad in it. So the important point to consider over here is something that is truly good is everlasting. Everlasting. Something that's really good. So, for example, the mitzvah that you do is literally everlasting. I don't mean everlasting, the feeling that you have from it. I don't mean the brownie points that you get for it. I mean, literally, it's everlasting. The good that we do because we create a new divine light every time we do a mitzvah that we introduce into this world that changes the world for good. Literally, right? It's everlasting, right? Now, other things have a potential for good. So, the most material world has some potential for good in it. And if we use it for a higher purpose, then even though it's not intrinsically good like a mitzvah, inherently good, but it too is elevated, right? And then you have those things that inherently don't have the value, but for the purpose of what will come out through them, they serve the purpose. And with this, then, the Rebbe says, God deems these things regrettable, implies that their existence is not absolute. They will eventually become null and extinct. This is because God regrets them. He desires them only for what they can accomplish, but he has no inherent interest in them. Again, perfect example is chemotherapy, right? Only, Big Pharma has inherent interest in it, but any decent person doesn't, and hopefully they too. That's a difference, right? So God is saying he regrets, means they're not going to last forever. There is some good in them because of what will come out of them. What will come out of them? So on the surface, the evil inclination appears to have no role in the era of Mashiach. But the Talmud tells us in the future era, God will bring the evil inclination and slaughter it before the righteous and the wicked. So what does that mean?
Like right in front of our eyes.
What does that mean? It's getting rid of it? Is that what it means? Yeah, we're talking about the evil inclination now. The evil inclination. Remember, there are four things. So we're dealing with this one. So what is right there? There's some things that have some good in them, right? They could. Let me back up for a second. Make sure there's clarity up here. There are some things that are intrinsically good, a mitzvah. Some things that have a mixture of good and bad in it. You can take the good from it, and that could be elevated. And then you have things that are bad, but they serve a purpose, right? They're not absolute. They won't last. So a mitzvah, we understand. We get that, right? That's absolute. It's going to be, Mashiach comes, we'll still learn, we'll learn even more Torah, right?
I understand half of that. I understand him doing away with the evil inclination when you come across somebody who is righteous. But I don't understand
Slaughter?
the absence of it for someone who is still wicked.
First of all, we're talking about future era times of Mashiach, right? This is a statement about future time, right? Right? This is future time we're talking about, right? Mitzvahs will still be here. That we got. Now we're speaking about the Yetzer Hara. Is one of the four that mention will be in the times of, right, that God regrets. So in regret, we're saying there isn't absolute value in it, right? We're going to see a nuance over here. So here we're speaking about the evil inclination. The evil inclination says it will be slaughtered. So slaughtered would sound like we're getting rid of it, right? But is that what happens when you slaughter an animal? You're not getting rid of the animal.
No, we're not.
No,
You're elevating.
you're actually elevating the animal. The word slaughter in Hebrew, means that you're actually drawing it up and elevating it. Because when you slaughter it, now it's kosher, and now it could be used on your Shabbos table, or it could be used in, to give you energy, so you could do a mitzvah, right? So you're actually elevating it. Let's see what the Rebbe says over here. Slaughtering does not mean the physical animal becomes extinct. The animal entirely remains in existence. Our sages taught to slaughter is to draw, to elevate. Drawing a purchased item into our domain doesn't change the item. We bring it into a new domain as is. Similarly, God will draw the evil inclination as it is into the private domain where only He exists. So the evil inclination, still warm from today.
It's so cool.
Huh?
Feels cold.
We're good. So move this way, move down so you won't be. Move your chair down. I know, so move your chair down. Move your chair down. Come, move your chair down. Move your chair down.
For the temperature.
Okay, so let's follow this point. Let's follow this point because there's a nuance over here that's important that I don't want to get lost on. The evil inclination, is it only bad? No, there's an element of good in it. So that's why it says slaughtered. It didn't say it'll become extinct. Extinct means that it only has value for the end that it produces. No, in the animal soul, there is a value to it. There is some goodness in it. Most of the goodness is lost today, right, to the negativity that it has. Because the animal soul, as we experience it right now, is very self-directed, self-centered, right, serving me. Is that clear? That will be slaughtered, that negativity. It now becomes kosher. Your animal soul becomes kosher, becomes elevated. Because there is an element of good in there. Right? So when God, if that element will elevate, that negativity, that will cease. Right? That will cease. Because it's going to be elevated to something greater. Does that make sense?
Now it does, yes.
Right? What does the animal soul have? Something that's powerful, great passion. So now the passion primarily is being used for self-directed purposes. That's the nature of the animal soul. Now, those who are trying to live Mashiach times means that you understand that the passion should be transformed into a passion for a mitzvah, right? A passion to do good. That's living, right, as we will, God willing, where it will be totally slaughtered elevated, and then the passion will only be for another mitzvah, for some more goodness and kindness in this world. That makes sense. So. And that's what it means, that the animal soul will be brought into the domain of God. Because even the animal tendency that we have, because of the goodness that is there, and it'll be elevated, it'll be now totally a passion for just goodness. That's what it means. Because all the impurities of the world be removed, and therefore the impurity that has to do with the negativity from within me removed, and it's going to be elevated, the animal soul. Okay? Is that clear? Now, let's go to the other two that we have. The Shadowlands and the Ishmaelites, right? They are very bad forces, very powerful negative forces, right? They are very wicked. It's interesting.
Aren't we still suffering from the Ishmaelites?
Yeah, but listen to this. Listen to this.
Decision, regret that?
That's part of the four that were regretted, right? That's what we, right? That's
That
what we.
it was a necessary evil. That's the part.
Well, first, we spoke about exile. Before we were speaking about exile. Now we're speaking about the other. Now we spoke about the evil inclination, and there's a distinction, but you gotta follow the nuance over here, right? There's a distinction, right? Now these two nations that we're talking about, inherent, there's evil that's there, but can the evil of somebody be changed? Yes, absolutely. Where there's life, there's hope. The wickedness of nations, right?
Well, I don't think.
Okay.
So,
Well, I'm sorry, the Gemara says not like you. So we're learning Torah right now. We're not learning Ronnie, we're not learning Sharon.
well, the Gemara is before it's happening now.
Huh?
It's been on forever. Okay. So-
Let's learn, okay? So even the most wickedness of nations, first of all, there are good people even in wicked nations, as we saw. Even in Germany, there were some good people that did some good to Jewish people. There were. Not so many, but there were, right? There were. Mashiach comes, these nations will be rehabilitated as the Spania says, for then I will convert the nations to a clear language. They will all call in the name of God to worship the name of God, to worship him in one accord. So, yeah, Isaiah says that all nations will stream to the house of God, right? Even those that were wicked, including those who were responsible for being part of the destruction of the first holy temple. Who massacred our people. Believe it or not, they can be rehabilitated, right? They can doesn't mean that presently they will be. We have to make a big distinction. We're talking about times of Mashiach, right? We're not talking about in this moment in what we are experiencing, in particular in Israel, right? That's not what it means.
Do you think
Right.
it's still gonna be around that long?
Mashiach is coming today.
Amen.
Amen.
It's not the shed.
I just have a question,
Sure.
because those four elements, they're not all on the same page. The Chaldeans are long gone. Exile is here.
Well, I know, we're gonna bring it all together.
Really, it's not in the same category at all. actually. 'cause
So,
they're gone.
I mean, you have a good question. What is that? Who are those Chaldeans today and who are the Ishmaelites referring to?
Yeah.
Excellent question. I'm not clear myself, be quite frank. That's an excellent question. So I don't know what, I have to look more into that. Good question. But I guess what the Rebbe is bringing out in the statement in the Talmud is that even those most wicked nations, right, they can be transformed and they will be transformed. That doesn't mean necessarily everybody, by the way, but the nation, yes. The real wicked ones, maybe not, right? But maybe yes. In other words, as a nation, as a people, there can be transformation. That's the point. Okay?
I think the best example is what exists with Germany today.
Oh, there's-
There's a different government, there's a different mindset.
And there's many Nazis still.
And there's many.
Yeah.
Even though you
Yeah,
can't
Jews
change
have
what
very hard
occurred.
times.
Yeah.
They're trying to avoid.
Okay, but there are good
Yeah.
people also.
So-
There are good people also. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, probably more good people today than there was 80 years ago. Probably. I would wager the bet, right? And in any case, when when I use an example of something, I'm only using it as an example, not that be like, not that becomes the reality of what we're talking about. Okay. In any case, the point being, and this is important, and this is a very, I know for many people, especially if they're related to the Holocaust, second generation, raised in a way that, they're evil, and they're evil. Yes, what was perpetrated was evil, absolutely. But that doesn't mean there cannot be anything redeeming. Not in Hitler, forget him, but we're not talking about Hitler or the Nazis of then. Can someone today be redeemed? Yes, it's possible. They have to want to be redeemed. They have to want to recognize the goodness and the godliness in them. Absolutely. Eventually, that's going to happen.
It doesn't
That's
say they
going to
want
happen.
be redeemed.
Huh?
It says, I will convert. It doesn't say, I will convert those that want to be redeemed, and they will call on the name. Because-
No, I'm saying today. No. I'm talking about today. I mean today as opposed to Mashiach. You're right. Mashiach, the light of God will be so overwhelming. The truth of creation and God's presence will be overwhelming that will then bring that about a renaissance, a change, a metamorphosis in people's understanding of purpose and reality of this world. That's what we're talking about. Right? So yeah, you're right. I meant today as opposed to tomorrow. Tonight the Mashiach is coming. Right? Yeah. So the point is, the evil inclination doesn't get eradicated. It gets slaughtered. It gets elevated. Right? These two wicked nations, whoever those wicked ones are, right, today, they don't get eradicated as a nation. People might, but the nation doesn't. They will, right? They will be part of the redemption. They will be part, as they will have a clear language and all come to recognize Hashem, right? That's the point. Okay. Oh, now the question about the exile. The exile, on the other hand, when Mashiach comes, is there anything redeemable about it? Is there anything to salvage from it? What?
Us.
No. From exile, not, you're not in exile anymore. Mashiach is here right now. Mashiach is here right now. Is there anything to salvage from exile? From the animal soul, we have to redeemed, it's going to be uplifted. Then the wicked nations, they'll be uplifted, right? But the exile,
There has to be, because it's all the one blanket statement, all four things.
okay, you got a good
It's
question.
the blanket
One second, you
statement.
have a good question. And you have a good question, but it's not the same. There's no need for it anymore. Right? It becomes utterly null and extinct.
Yeah, we'll know that. Also, the exile, the purpose of the exile is so that we know that.
We're talking about once there is redemption, not today, right? The salvation, so the Midrash says, salvation that awaits us in the future will not be followed by subjugation. The passage stage, Israel will be saved by God, with an everlasting salvation. You will never again be ashamed or disgraced for all of eternity. There will be no future exile, right? There's nothing redeeming, nothing good in exile. When you finally return to your father's table,
Mhm.
and you weren't at your father's table all this time, so anything, all there is to be at that table, right? That's all. There's nothing more. When you have your children sitting at your table, you have your grandchildren sitting at your table, right? And they were away for a long time. You didn't see them. You're not going back. They're going to stay at your table, right? So did it serve a purpose? It served a purpose, and that's why it's regrettable, because it serves a purpose. But once the purpose has been served, in other words, there's no value in it anymore. Finished. The animal soul has value because there was some good in it, right? The exile served its purpose, but once it served its purpose, gone. What do we need it for? Right? Exactly. Now, this is actually this terminology that it becomes regrettable. When's it regrettable? By God. Only when Mashiach comes? No. Now. Right. So how do we understand that now? We understand that when Mashiach will come, that it's finished. So that's why it's regrettable, because it's not absolute. Exile, that's it. No more subjugation, no more being thrown out of 100 more nations as we were in the last 2,000 years. No more the disgrace and humiliation and the destruction and the loss of life. And it's not going to happen anymore. Finished. Exile, done with. Right? So, but when we speak about regrettable, we're talking about today. We don't mean merely that because it's absolute, it's not absolute and it's done with, it served its purpose and now no longer. But the regrettable is God saying about it at this moment. So here the regrettable is like the animal soul is saying is regrettable, right? And the wicked nations that have brought upon us a lot of pain and suffering, right? Our animal soul also brings us pain and suffering, right? Because we sin because of it, right? But there's something here about the statement regrettable about something that will be absolutely nothing in the end. And that's to tell us that even in this moment, exile is also absolutely nothing. And it's regrettable by God. Meaning it's not a true reality. We feel death and taxes is real. Goodness and kindness, I visited because it feels good, but that's not true reality. True reality is the harsh pain of life. That's regrettable. And we should see it as regrettable because that's not true reality. That's not truth because it's not going to be. And even now, while it is, it's not the true reality. No, it's
that
a reality we could choose not to be like.
The false reality.
The false reality. We don't have to. It's what our eyes see. It's what our our ears hear. It's when you open up, the news. What you see in the news, and not if you go into the hospital and you see sick people, right? And it's very easy to get like, this is true. This is reality. The pain that everybody's suffering. What is saying over here that it's regrettable for God. It's regrettable that we should experience that as being the truth. That doesn't mean not to be empathetic with another person. Of course, be empathetic with another individual, but don't make that your reality. Don't make that your reality. Which is when you think about this, is the ultimate paradox. That person in front of you you're talking to is suffering. And you know that that's not the true reality. That's regrettable. That is what, right? Right? It's not the truth of God. It's not what it, right? It's only for the outcome that will come. There will be a cleansing, but that's not what he's feeling. He's feeling pain. He's feeling suffering. You need to be empathetic for that, right? At the same time, so easy to get lost in that and thinking that that's reality. It's not. It's not reality. That's such an amazing way that we could be able to live, right? To be able to, I don't know, teeter-totter almost like on both things, that you sense that in the other person and you actually feel it. You feel like, oh my gosh, And how do you feel it? Because you know what pain is. We've all experienced it, but you're experiencing it empathetically because of them, but that doesn't make it your reality. Empathy doesn't mean it's your reality, right? And here, your reality is no. Sitting at my Father's table, that's the only thing that should be. It should not be the suffering that we're going through. It should not be the pain that we're going through. That's not the true reality. True reality is that God's presence should be here. And anything short of that is regrettable. 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 Literally.
Also what our mind perceives.
Yeah, exactly. That's not easy. You can only live your life, Helen.
No, but if
You have to live your life. We're talking about you living your life. Huh?
If you put yourself and say, well, something happens. Tomorrow I'm super sick, it's a bad day, right? Am I gonna say this is not the reality? Of course it's a reality. It is my reality.
Your reality is how you look at it,
But I
how
mean,
you
it
give what
could
you
be
give it.
Suffering and the person's because to cleanse you. So now you're saying, well, really, we're not cleansing you. This really isn't happening to you.
No. I that's not the.
Like, where's that sitting?
No, 1 second. So first of all, the famous story of a chassid came to the Mizitcher Magid, the successor of the Baal Shem Tov, the Rebbe of the Alter Rebbe, right? And he said to him, Rebbe, I don't understand. It says you have to thank God for the good and for the evil equally. How's that possible? How's it possible to thank God for the good and the evil equally? One thing is to thank God for whatever he sends your way, but equally, how could you do that? So he said, you know what? Go to my student, Reb Zusha, and ask him the question. Yes, Reb Zusha from Anapol. So, okay, makes the trek to Reb Zusha. He comes and he sees he lives in a hovel. He's a teacher, and by day he's teaching the students a little kinderlach. He's teaching them with such exuberance and so on. And then afterwards he comes and he says, "I came to see you." He said, "Well, I'm teaching. I'll come back later." He comes back later and he sees the same planks that were used for the kids to sit on. Right now, he turned them into beds for his kids to sleep on. The poverty that this man was, had was like just beyond. And like I can't imagine, well, like, was he sending him over here and to such an individual? And he came to him, and he felt so terrible because of, like, the morsels of food for his kids, and so he said, I'm coming here on a mission from the Rebbe, to ask you what it means to bless God on the good and the bad equally. She looks at him. I have no idea why he sent you to me, because for me, life is only but good. He was abject poverty, but he didn't see that. He saw only good, God's goodness. Okay, Rabbi Zusha from Anapol, he's a tzaddik. He's a, he's a, very special soul. Absolutely. No doubt about it. He lived Mashiach, right? So can I look at my life in such way? Yeah, possible. And I don't think the point over here is like, with all that pain and suffering I'm going through, is the question is, how am I viewing the world around me, the darkness around me, the pain and the suffering around me? How am I? Yes, I'm empathetic to those, right, in pain, absolutely. But is that the reality? It's not, because that's what God says he regrets, because it's not absolute. It's not what's meant to be. We're not meant to be pushed away from God, and because of our sins, we got pushed away, and therefore terrible things happen. We're supposed to be at his table, celebrating with him at all times. That is truth, the absolute truth. And that is ultimately what's going to happen. And I think what the important point is that when we're looking at the news and we're looking at the terrible things that happen, that can't be our reality. And you know how you live that? Only thanks to the Rebbe. We lived it because when October 7th came, we sang and danced here like there was no tomorrow. At the same time, brokenhearted for what was going on in Israel, right? Brokenhearted, but we know that that's not reality. That's not. Yes, it's a lot of pain and suffering, and not. But this is not the world to be. This is not the way the world is meant to be. It's not at all. And we never give in to that. That's the real message over here. Never give in to that. Know that even though it seems like a jungle, it's God's garden. And if it's God's garden, so it's Simchas Torah. On Simchas Torah, you got to dance. Every other religious Jew, besides Chabad, they tempered their dancing. Some of it canceled Simchas Torah. How could you dance on Simchas Torah? What's going on in Israel? What's saying is, this is truth. This is the only reality. This is fact. Again, we dance, inside we're pain. At the same time, exuberant. Because we're not going to allow darkness to rule. Because that's not reality. That's not the real truth. Even though to your eyes, that's what you're experiencing. We can't let that take hold and become our reality. That, again, it doesn't mean it's not painful, right? It doesn't mean it's not painful, but it's an illusion. It's an illusion of the real truth. Not what that other person's going through that they're saying poo-pooing, and it's nothing. No. Again, even what we're going through, right? Because it's our brothers and our sisters. So, yes. Imagine having two opposite feelings at the same time. That's completely paradoxical. We had that in Tanya a couple of times that the Alter brought down from the Zohar. That Reb Shimon Bar Yochai taught his son Rabbi Elazar, right, the famous Rashbi, taught his son about the depth of understanding of the Holy Temple and the mystical, sublime understanding of it. So Reb Shimon was like, on one hand, he was like in the greatest joy, but that also brought him to the greatest pain because he was in the generation after its destruction. His father witnessed part of the destruction. So here he is, having two unbelievable opposite feelings because of the depth of understanding what the Holy Temple is. At the same time, that created him great sorrow and pain at the same time. Two complete opposite feelings coming from two different things. That's possible. You can have that, right? But what's important is that and this is what it means to regret over here, is that the true reality is not the pain and the suffering, because it will not be forever. And as the Rebbe says, when he was, before he became 3 years old, he wrote a letter to the third president of Israel. And he did not call him Nasi. What's his name? I forget his name, not third. Third or the second, I don't remember now.
Yitzchak Robert.
No, Yitzchak, Yitzchak, I think, was his first name. Yitzchak Nissim, if I remember correctly. So I think it was the second president, because Shazar, I think, was the third. And he wrote to him saying, you'll have to excuse me, he didn't call him by the proper title, or the title in Israel that they call him by, Nasi. Nasi means the president, not prime minister. President is not an elected official in Israel, right? Prime minister is an elected official, right? Like right now, what's his name? No, he's a president. Herzog. Herzog is a president, right? It's not an elected official. So the Rebbe said to him, please don't take this personal, but the word Nasi for him is in a reference to the leader of the generation of the Jewish people, who ultimately is Mashiach. And in the letter he writes, he says that even before I went to Cheder, which before he was 3 years old, I already envisioned what it would be like when Mashiach comes, that we will then praise God. We will praise and thank God that he has smitten us in the times of exile. Because then we will appreciate that everything that happened in exile, right, was a gift from above. Today we don't appreciate it, right? We don't appreciate it, right? But it will be able to have the lens to be able to see the world and life in such a manner in the times of Mashiach, right? So, today we don't really have that lens, but what we do have a lens is that we don't give in to the news. Don't give in to the pain and suffering in the world, that is the way it's meant to be.
Don't vote for Trump.
That has nothing to do with it.
This is live.
Don't allow that to be
Dominate your life.
to be your reality, right? Feel the pain and realize that there's greater light and goodness that's in life today, and ultimately the way it's meant to be. And the only reason the pain is it's regrettable. So it's not the true reality. Yeah, I'm not talking to any of you here, I'm talking to myself now. Thank you for all being here because it made it easier for me to talk to myself.
Yeah.
I mean it seriously. This is not a simple thing. Not a simple thing to live this way. The bar is very high. Don't look at yourself tomorrow and say, oh, what did I come to the class for? Oh, I'm way down here. Don't look at it that way. Look at the bar is very high, and you might be over here, but maybe tomorrow you'll be over here then. At least that which was dark and challenging and difficult, you didn't allow it to get you down. Till now, it got you down, right? Now, you're not going to allow it to get you down. It's forgettable. That's not the true reality. I'm not going to live with that. Don't live with it.
The challenge.
L'chaim.
I rise to power.
Any questions, any comments?
Both.
Isn't there either a sage or a rabbi who said that what we're living is actually a dream and that's gonna, I
Oh,
think you've said it.
yes, 1 second, thank you. Oh, yes.
And I remember that.
1 second. Thank you. Hold on. Yes. When God brings us back, the returnees of Zion, we will say we were like dreamers. Thank you. Forgot that one.
Yeah.
Right? We were like dreamers. So let's see the final actually reading from the Rebbe from this Sikha. The exile is not real, not permanent. It is like a dream we will soon wake up from. So the Rebbe says, we must not despair, God forbid, nor have we reason to fear our exile circumstances. We know that this is not our true reality, and that it will finally, in fact, imminently become null and void. Right? Not like the Sahara and the nations that are wicked, they're going to transform. This becomes null and void. So now we need to know that, right? This is especially true in our era, when we can already hear the footsteps of Mashiach. Our task is to hasten the end of the exile with enthusiasm by increasing the light of the world through Torah mitzvahs. This will speed up the expulsion of the exilic darkness. So that's what we got to do. Take upon ourselves another mitzvah, another learning, another good thing, with being aware that I'm bringing more light that is going to bring the final end of Galus.
How many more classes before you end them? 2 more?
We have next week, and in 2 weeks we're going to have a Rosh Hashanah symposium. So you're going to have 4 hours of classes, starting with Shana, and then me. 5:30, starting with Shana at 5:30, me at 6:30, like regular time. It's Mendel at 7:30, and Rabbi Bressinger, Benjamin Bressinger at 8:30. Oh, you got that in the
2
email.
weeks from 2 weeks.
2 weeks from the end. The next week will be regular.
Regular. The week after is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
When was that dinner again that you're bringing in a speaker?
That's Shabbos in 2 weeks. All right. Any questions, comments? All right.
What about Shvira Kirim, like
All right,
Thank
folks.
you.
Thank you.